Venus recording has been a dream in my head for years and years and years. I wanted to create an amplifier that embodied the best of the tones that were possible in our amplifiers, the range of amplifiers, such as the Knucklehead Tray and the Venus 5 and the Venus 6, and be able to put it in a compact form so that musicians could transport it around in a briefcase. So you wanted to be able to get all the tones at the output stage, and this all culminated with our Rock Crusher recording coming on the scene, because now we had active speaker emulation, where you could actually create the patterns of different speakers, the tonal patterns, which would allow you to then jack them into a PA or into home recording or whatever you wanted to, so we could get the full preamp, the full output stage, and speaker emulation all in a compact package. The Tonal Architecture, our Venus recording, is one of the most flexible and fulfilling architectures we've ever created. We have a wonderful clean channel, which has all kinds of great sparkly tones. We have a lead channel that has tremendous amounts of gain potential. It also has a 6-position tone switch, which enables you to expand the range of the tone controls, coupled with our active speaker emulation with our 11-band graphic equalizer that can be used before the power amp or after the power amp. Combined together, it is a palette of tones that is almost infinite. One of the incredible things about the Venus recording is the ability to actually use the tone of the output stage either through the built-in load or through an external cabinet. The amplifier puts out 25 watts, which is a reasonable amount of power. It allows you to utilize that internal load for silent stage or for silent recording. Get that awesome tone, either overdriven, clean, whatever you wish, and then utilizing the speaker emulation through the direct out. It's the best of all the worlds. You can either monitor it with an external cabinet, do it silently, it's there. It's important to utilize the output stage as part of your tone. One, it's not as compressed as just hearing a preamp, especially in comparison with a digital preamp. So we have the analog preamp, full tube tone, coupled with this output stage. And when the output stage, for example, when you're playing it distorted, you're talking about the nuances that occur in the output transformer. You're talking about nuances that occur with the harmonics. You're talking about a spongy, feely sensation you just can't get with synthesizing it in a digital preamp, or let alone preamp only, even if it's tube. So now we've got the whole thing combined into one. One of the things that we've researched and done with our 11-band EQ, and this goes back to the Rock Crusher recording, is we focused the bands of the frequencies themselves in the most critical guitar regions. After examining and analyzing many, many loudspeakers from Eminence and Celestion and JBL and Altec, we realized that there are particular frequency bands that affect the tone more critically than others. For example, we don't have a 10 kilohertz band on our equalizer. We have bands that are centered within the first, second, and third harmonics and fundamentals of the guitars. And if you look at the mechanical response of loudspeakers, you'll notice there's hardly anything above 6K, and there's all these peaks and dips anywhere between 100 hertz and 3 kilohertz. So if you'll notice on our equalizer, we have these bands centered in those frequencies, which will allow you to really dial in and I use the word nuance, the delicate parts that really create a beautiful oral image of what you're listening to. One of the powerful things about the Venus recording is its 2 effects loops. One effects loop with level controls on the front panel is between the preamplifier and the power amplifier. The second effects loop is actually post-power amp. The one between the preamp and the power amplifier allows you to patch in effects that you want to reproduce cleanly the sound of whatever's going in the preamp and then put that into the output stage. That's actually a great place to put delay units, chorus units, and so on. However, putting an effects loop post power amp allows you to actually have effects in the signal chain going through the direct output just as you would in a recording studio. For example, if you're recording a stack and you've got your guitars blazing, you're then going to put that blazing amp sound through a digital reverb, a digital delay, some kind of chorusing, where you actually want that stack sound intact, but you want it modified by the effects that are going into your recording apparatus or your live performance. That's with a second effects loop. So we have kind of this big range of where to patch your effects, and it really takes it on to another level. Another feature of the Vetus recording is our auxiliary input. This enables you to actually run a parallel processing, meaning you can have simultaneous processing with another preamp or distortion pedal or whatever it is you wish, and then blend in the tone as if it was a parallel effects loop. So you can also move it so you hear it through the internal power amplifier or only through the direct output. This is a huge advance in being able to couple your amplifier with other products. So for example, if you were to use a digital preamplifier, you could utilize the power amplifier of the Venus recording and add all the warmth of the power amplifier from that other either preamp or effect or whatever you wish. We've taken great pains to build the Venus recording in a very, very rugged package. We utilize a lot of very high quality parts. We utilize parts that exceed most commercial parts specifications, such as very high temp electrolytic capacitors that have a long life. We have German capacitors such as WEMA, polycarbonate, polyethylene film capacitors, which sound awesome. They are wound and not stacked. Little details like that. For example, when we put the heatsink in here and our internal load, this is really an internal load for 100 watts, not a 25 watt amp. And the reason we did that is so that you could put it on silent, open it wide open, and play this thing for hours without it getting too hot. So we took that same philosophy through the rest of the chassis. For example, much of the wire that we use is a special wire that's actually custom made for us. It's an irradiated PVC, like Teflon, that will not burn. We utilize, even in our small signal wire, 105 centigrade wire, just for the assurance that we won't have any breakdowns if these things ever get warm in a closed rack case or whatever it is, these things have to perform. So for example, on the mains wiring, I don't know if you can see the tubing that we utilize, but we actually use a tremendous amount of high temperature military tubing on the mains primaries, and we also use it on the secondaries, so that there isn't any possibility of any kind of shorts or fires or anything else, because we really don't know the environment that this amplifier is going in, but we're going to assume that it's going to see severe duty. So with that in mind, this is how we built our chassis and our circuit boards and so on. So for example, this is all 16 gauge steel as well as the chassis itself. So in a situation where you're on the road and this thing's in the back of a broken down pickup truck or in the back of a tour bus or loaded onto and out of stages or in and out of a briefcase, whatever it is, you want it to be able to survive it. One of the critical parts of any amplifier, especially a tube amplifier, is the transformer set. The transformers are built for us in Chicago by the same company that has built transformers for Fender and many of the great giants in the American amplifier history. So we take great pride that we utilize American transformers as part of it. These are custom transformers that are built to our specifications. They're made to run for hours and hours and hours, cool running. We don't stress the transformers, they're conservatively rated, and that is a big part of the tone as well as the reliability of an amplifier. Something as simple as the connectors on a wiring harness, we've actually gone through great pains for. we utilize a special terminal called a trifurcon, as well as it's also referred to as a high pressure terminal, in our connectors that makes sure that the actual pin is contacted on all sides. Many of the terminals themselves contact only one side of a pin, and as such, if there's any oxidation, you're going to get distortion, if not an intermittent connection. So by actually grabbing all sides of a pin, which is what our connectors do, you're ensured that even in a stressful environment, high humidity or over time, there's still a high likelihood, a very high likelihood, of continuous contact without any intermittence. One of the interesting failures that has occurred in other people's products has been the use of inferior jacks for the input and output. We have, since the first Rivera amplifiers, utilized metal barrel jacks with high pressure contacts that allow years and years and years of use without difficulty, without issues. So for example, many British amps use plastic jacks on the speakers. And if you look at the back of them, you'll notice that many of them have broken from rough housing and so on. And the ground contact is not the barrel itself. It's only a leaf that touches one side of the phone plug. So by utilizing the barrel jacks, the metal barrel jacks that we do, we're actually grabbing the entire phone plug for the ground connection. So it has enabled us to have reliable connections for years and years and years of use. The testing procedures on the Venus recording are all-encompassing. We test the power supplies, we test the output stage, the preamp sections, the equalizers. All of the inputs and outputs are all swept, measured, and we do this over a long period of time. We also burn these in, we high pot them, we go through all the procedures necessary. It's actually a very extensive testing because this amplifier does so much, and there are so many parts of it that need to be examined closely to make sure that it meets spec. So we play test these through a PA system, we play test them through an external cabinet, so it goes not only bench testing, but actual physical testing in an environment that we can actually hear it as it's delivered to the customer. 2016 is our 40th anniversary of Rivera Research and Development. I've been designing amplifiers since the late 60s, and because of this experience, it has enabled me to have a great lookup table of the proper ways to lay out circuit boards, the proper ways to lay out chassis. It all has a very big effect on tone. I've done multiple layouts on the same circuit board where by just moving a trace, a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, it has actually changed the tone of the amplifier. And it's kind of that experience that allows you to really create something that's going to sound good, not only from circuit board layout, but also the physical layout. All power transformers have some form of radiation, and it's a electrical, if you look at them, you can see the magnetic fields that emanate. Even toroids have their own fields. And so by utilizing a proper way to physically lay them out, you can eliminate hum issues. You can also change the tone of the amplifiers, the way they interact the transformers.